Dr. Michael Wolf. I'm a co-founder of Lobesity. I was born and raised in Akron, Ohio. Went to Ohio State for undergraduate school and medical school. And after many years away, both training and in my career, returned to Cleveland in 2010. The problems related to obesity go well beyond the cosmetic aspect and really affect virtually every organ system. If you look at obesity in relationship to other diseases, obviously there's diabetes. Type 2 diabetes, which is a very bad name, what we call now in many cases is diabesity. It's directly related. That's just one. If you look at heart disease, numerous problems in the heart and vascular disease. Take the blood vessel you want, it gets clogged because of obesity. The most important aspects is the relationship to malignancies. And many malignancies are increased as a result of obesity. Why is it's complex, but one of the major reasons is that in obesity, insulin levels are much increased, as are other hormones, and these hormones actually do stimulate the growth of malignant cells. So they play a major role. In fact, some of the malignancies found in women, such as breast, ovarian, and uterine, are increased dramatically in obesity. You're talking about 30 to 40% of these malignancies are related to obesity. So this is not simply just cosmetic. It is a major medical problem. It costs our economy actually $663 billion a year, according to the McKinsey study, and that's going to get worse. The medications that are used currently, for the most part, decrease appetite. Not only that, as a scientist, clinical scientist, we want to treat the disease by finding out what caused it in the first place. There is one thing for certain, and it is the fact that we have really fooled evolution. There's no evidence appetite's increased. However, if you look at over the millions of years, the food wasn't abundant. In order to survive, we had to adapt mechanisms to make sure that we absorbed and stored everything. In fact, the average American spends 1 hour and 6 minutes a day eating. So for nearly 23 hours a day, we're living on stored energy. So the capacity to store is the basis of survival. And that is accomplished through insulin. Insulin enhances the uptake of nutrients into fat cells, muscle cells, and the liver for storage and ultimate use. So as I point out, most of the day we're living by breaking down these nutrients, mostly fat, into usable molecules for energy. In addition, for various reasons, for very scientific, insulin resides in the pancreas. So something in the intestine needs to be there to make sure that insulin is released. It's been known for a long time, since the 60s, that something in the intestine is responsible for 2/3 of insulin release. We discovered what that was in my laboratory. Interestingly, I think people lose sight of the fact that we generally don't inject ourselves with food. We eat. It goes to our GI tract. So it makes sense that that's where everything should reside. And in fact, insulin really only goes up after meals. What makes it goes up, most of it is actually because of this hormone we call GIP, it accounts for 2/3 of insulin release. We have a compound, a monoclonal antibody, which blocks this hormone GIP. As a result, insulin levels are diminished by around 2/3. This observation was first made in humans back in the mid-1960s when an experiment was done in which humans, again I stress humans, were injected with glucose, or the next day were given glucose orally. One would think intuitively that giving the injection through the veins, IV injection of glucose, should be more efficient in causing insulin release. But in fact, it was only 1/3 of the amount of insulin released from oral. In other words, 2/3 diminished. We found what was responsible for the 2/3 difference, and that's GIP. Well, we have a little ways to go, but the good news is we're making very good progress, and we should start doing human studies aimed at identifying mechanisms that is going to be effective in various aspects of obesity, probably in 18 to 24 months. We have studies that are necessary, that are required, looking at safety and toxicity in animals and then humans first. Our prediction, based on scientific knowledge, is that there'll be little, if any, toxicity. And the reason is that monoclonal antibodies are very, very specific, and they only target one molecule, in this case, GIP. Not only that, we know that monoclonal antibodies cause significant problems in the brain. And if you look at why that would be the case, all the appetite centers are tied together, are right near the pleasure centers, the hedonic centers. So what happens is many drugs that affect appetite cause massive depression. What we have is very novel. It hits obesity at its root cause. It makes us less efficient eaters. We still eat. I mean, we can't engorge ourselves, but we become less efficient eaters. We prevent the uptake of food. We prevent the storage of food. And we've shown this in animal studies. And as I mentioned, the animal studies explain an original study done in humans. We want to reverse the problem that actually caused obesity in the first place. And that is what it is that we are very efficient eaters. We absorb and store everything. That was important when food was scarce. And now food is abundant, but we haven't changed our ways. We're programmed to eat when food is available, and it's always available. So we're absorbing and storing everything. What we're doing here is decreasing that vicious cycle and making us less efficient eaters, and thereby actually treating the disease appropriately. So I grew up in Akron, went to Ohio State, and was away from here for 35 years. I came back 2010. Unfortunately, at that time, LeBron James left. He heard I was coming, and he decided to leave and go to Miami. But he came back too. And the change in Cleveland is dramatic. I told everybody when I was coming here that people on the East Coast don't understand. They think nothing exists except for the East Coast and possibly California. But Cleveland is a premier biomedical town. It has incredible medical education, wonderful hospitals, and innovation is virtually unsurpassed. We're one of the giants. If you look at the giants in innovation, you're talking about Cleveland, Boston, the Silicon Valley in San Francisco, San Diego to some extent, and a few other places. But this is one of the centers of innovation. And what comes out of Cleveland is remarkable. And we're hoping, and we're very confident, this will be one of the major innovations coming out of Cleveland, which will be actually a treatment of obesity that makes sense on a scientific basis. We want to treat diseases scientifically as much as possible. This is what we're doing here. We're actually attacking obesity at its root cause.